Welcome to our noon edition of Arirang News. Here are the stories making the headlines at this hour. The government is not budging with its decision to expand med school slots from next year, despite calls from medical school chiefs to drop the plan. The Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform, a special consultative body that discusses medical reform tasks, will be launched on Thursday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hinted that an offensive in Rafah may be on the way within the next few days to put pressure on Hamas to release Israeli hostages. Much-needed U.S. military and economic aid could reach Ukraine as early as this week after the House of Representatives approved $61 billion of war aid for Ukraine. The latest developments in the medical school enrollment quota dispute have seen neither sides backing down. Doctors are refusing calls for talks without the possibility of a quota freeze on the table, while the government is prepared to launch a task force to discuss issues with or without their representation. And now, 10 weeks into the walkouts, the government is focusing on providing backup for medical staff shortages, not only extending the employment of public and military doctors at big hospitals, but also temporarily enabling private doctors with their own practices to support hospitals without needing their applications to be approved by the local government, but just directly by the hospitals themselves. Yoon starts us off.
The medical community and government have come to a stalemate once again, despite the government's attempts to facilitate discussions and allow some flexibility regarding their decision to increase the medical school quota. On Sunday, the deans of 40 medical schools across the country submitted a joint statement demanding that the medical school admissions quota for 2025 be kept as is without any increases. The Korean Medical Association and a group of medical school professors all backed this statement, along with junior school doctors taking the stance that no dialogue with the government can take place without the topic of a medical school quota freeze on the table. This comes just 2 days after Prime Minister Han Duck-soo announced that the government will allow each medical school to freely decide the number of students that can enroll for 2025, allowing schools to independently recruit between 50% and 100% of the previously suggested increased quota. As the need for conversation between the two sides grows, a special task force is due to launch on Thursday. The task force, made up of 6 government officials and 20 non-government officials, such as experts and representatives from doctors' groups, will discuss pivotal issues in the government's plans for medical reform. But the Korean Medical Association has rejected this call for talks, saying that the purpose and organization of the task force is not concrete and that it feels its opinions will not be heard. Junior doctors, the key personnel who have been staging mass walkouts, have not yet confirmed whether they will be sending representatives to the task force meeting. Even if doctors refuse to participate in a task force meeting this week, the government plans to push ahead with the task force. Meanwhile, resignations from medical school professors that were submitted last month in solidarity with junior doctors will take effect starting on Thursday. With concerns arising over further staff shortages at hospitals, the Health Ministry has extended the employment of 184 military and public doctors to ensure emergency medical treatment. Moon Hae-ryan, Arirang News.
South Korea is set to shift its categorization of COVID-19 to endemic level more than 4 years since the outbreak of the disease. Starting May 1st, the government will lower its crisis level to the lowest of its 4-tier system, and accordingly, some of the remaining mandatory safety measures will be lifted as well. Kim Dami with the details.
From alert to the lowest level attention. Starting May 1st, South Korea will fully shift its COVID-19 status to endemic, lowering the disease in its 4-level crisis system from the second highest to the lowest. This decision comes more than 4 years after the first COVID-19 infection was identified on January 20th, 2020. The health authorities cited the country's stable situation with a low fatality rate, and none of the particularly dangerous variants being detected as the reasons behind the decision.
COVID-19 is safely being managed. After we listened to experts' advice twice, last January and April, most of them agreed on the possibility of lowering the crisis level.
According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the number of new COVID-19 patients in the second week of April was 22,083, a sharp drop from the 47,005 reported in the first week of March. Another reason behind the decision was that no other new variant, except for the JN.1, which made up more than 83% of new cases, has been detected. As South Korea fully shifts to an endemic approach, some of the remaining mandatory safety measures will no longer be applied. The mandatory indoor mask requirement that remained for hospitals and other infection-vulnerable facilities will be lifted, as will be the preemptive COVID-19 tests that were required for people entering such facilities. Quarantining for 24 hours is still recommended for patients after their main symptoms dissipate. Additionally, government coverage of associated medical costs will end, no longer paying for COVID-19 tests or the hospitalization of severely ill patients. Patients will also have to partly pay for Paxlovid, an oral antiviral pill, except for those in low-income groups. COVID-19 vaccine will be freely given to everyone through the 2024 flu season, but afterward, coverage will be limited to high-risk groups including people aged 65 and older and those with compromised immune systems. Lastly, government-level response organizations, such as the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, which has been overseeing COVID-19-related measures since its outbreak, will be disbanded. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
President Yoon has appointed Chung Jing-seok, a journalist turned politician, as his new chief of staff to better handle public communication and relations with the opposition party. On Monday, Yoon addressed reporters at the Yongsan presidential office, introducing Chung as his highest-ranking official for political affairs, following the general election on April 10th that handed the opposition bloc an overwhelming majority in parliament. Highlighting Chung's journalistic background and experience at the National Assembly as former deputy speaker and a senior aide to former President Lee Myung-bak, Yoon emphasized that his new chief of staff would work on strengthening communication with the National Assembly, including the opposition, the media, and the public. Regarding his invitation to opposition leader Lee Jae-myung to visit Yongsan sometime this week, Yoon said that no agenda has been set, but the purpose of the meeting is to hear Lee out and hopefully focus on ways to improve people's livelihoods. The annual conference of South Korea's chiefs of overseas diplomatic missions kicked off in Seoul on Monday. A total of 182 mission chiefs and officials returned home to exchange their views on ways to strengthen diplomacy amid geopolitical challenges. They are set to discuss issues ranging from North Korea's growing nuclear threats and the intensifying rivalry between the U.S. and China to the crisis in Ukraine and the Middle East. The envoys will also address this year's key foreign ministry tasks, which include robust security diplomacy, diplomacy centered on economy and livelihoods, and multilateral diplomacy as a global pivotal state. The conference will run until Friday. New data from Statistics Korea released Monday shows that the proportion of workers aged under 40 at small businesses is lower than the proportion at big companies. The report says employees under 40 accounted for about 31% of the workforce at small firms in 2023, while the figure for that age group working at conglomerates comes to nearly half of the total. According to Yonhap News, this is due to lower wages and weak working conditions at small companies. Statistics Korea also released data for 2022, which shows that the average monthly salary for workers at big companies was over $4,200, which is double the wages at small businesses. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted at launching an offensive in Rafah, emphasizing he would put military pressure on Hamas within the next few days to rescue his country's hostages. Lee Seung-jae with the latest.
During his Passover speech on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that he would put military pressure on Hamas within the next few days to rescue Israeli hostages. The Israeli Prime Minister said that Hamas has rejected all offers to release hostages, adding that the military group has not backed down from its extreme positions. According to Netanyahu, military action is the only solution to rescue hostages.
Therefore, we will land additional painful blows on it, and it will happen soon. In the coming days, we'll increase the military and political pressure on Hamas, because this is the only way to free our hostages and achieve our victory.
While Netanyahu's remarks don't confirm the start of an operation in Rafah, the Times of Israel reported that the Israeli Army Chief of Staff approved a battle plan for the Southern Command on Sunday. Israel believes that the Hamas leadership is hiding in the Rafah region and that a military operation to enter Rafah is essential to end the war. However, the international community, including the United States, have been trying to deter Israel from taking such action, saying that an offensive in Rafah, where about 1.4 million Palestinian refugees have gathered, could lead to huge losses of civilian lives. Meanwhile, nearly 200 bodies were discovered in a mass grave inside Nasser Hospital compound in Khan Yunis. Palestinian authorities say the Israeli military is responsible for the mass grave, which included bodies of elderly women, children, and young men. The discovery follows another mass grave found at Al-Shifa Hospital last week. More than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the war began over 6 months ago. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. House has passed military aid package over the weekend, and the bill now awaits passage in the Senate before it lands on U.S. President Joe Biden's desk for his signature. If the process goes smoothly, a U.S. senator says materials including long-range missiles could be in transit by the end of the week. Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
The U.S. could begin transferring more weapons for Ukraine, including long-range Army tactical missile systems, by the end of the week once President Joe Biden signs the bill that recently passed the House. This is according to U.S. Senator Mark Warner during an interview with CBS News released on Sunday. His remarks come as the U.S. House of Representatives approved a $61 billion military aid package for Ukraine on Saturday, after months of delays and political infighting. The legislative package includes security assistance not just for Ukraine but also Israel and Taiwan, with some $26 billion for Israel and a little more than $8 billion for Taiwan. The legislation is to proceed to the Senate, where proceedings are expected to begin on Tuesday. President Biden has urged the Senate to quickly send the package to his desk so that Washington can send weapons and equipment to Ukraine to meet its urgent battlefield needs. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude for the passage of the bill and urged the U.S. to minimize the time between political decisions and actually providing the military aid to Ukraine.
The time between political decisions and inflicting real defeats on the enemy at the front, between the approval of the aid package and providing the strength to our guys, this should be reduced to a minimum, and this strength is what is truly needed to change the situation at the front.
While saying the aid will give Ukraine a chance at victory, he further underlined its need for long-range weapons and air defense to not lose people on the front line. The U.S. has previously delivered ATACMS missiles to Ukraine, but it only provided older models with a range of 165 kilometers instead of new variants with a maximum range of around 300 kilometers, which have so far not been provided to Ukraine. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
There is a spot that 1 out of 5 people in South Korea visited last year. It's the Suncheonman International Garden Expo, which is now opened as a national garden under the theme, a place even aliens would visit. Yoon has the story.
This is the first national garden in South Korea. It is located in Suncheon, the largest city in the Jeollanam-do province. It almost looks like a UFO has landed in the garden. The newly revamped National Garden welcomed over 200,000 visitors in its first week, with more than half of them visiting in the first weekend. More than anything, the children are very excited to visit. Last year, nearly 10 million visitors came through this garden during its annual expo.
We're here again because the theme Even Aliens Would Visit is new this year, and I really like the new characters that are unveiled at the opening ceremony each year.
The theme park area for children has been greatly expanded. What's unique about this park is that it is aiming for a K-Disney motif. In time for the opening of the national park, a ceremony was held to declare Suncheon a garden culture city. Festivals were held throughout its 24 towns and villages.
This is something that is impossible even for the central government. You made it possible. I firmly believe that you will make the future of this garden culture city, and I'll also do everything I can.
The city of Suncheon is now ambitiously preparing for a second season of its Garden Expo, this time to feature an animation theme park. The Suncheonman National Garden, which looks like a place even aliens would visit, is open to visitors and tourists year-round, but is closed on the last Monday of every month. Yoon, Arirang News.
April 20th was Disabled Persons Day here in South Korea, and our culture correspondent Suncheonman spoke with a K-pop group that debuted on that day, whose passion and commitment have already begun to inspire others.
Attention! 매일 오션입니다. 잘 부탁드립니다.
The name Big Ocean reflects their desire to spread hope and positivity like the feeling you get when gazing at the ocean. All three members, Jiseok, Hyunjin, and Chanyeon, have hearing impairments. Jiseok was born with a disability, while Hyunjin and Chanyeon experienced partial hearing loss at a young age. They can hear with the help of hearing aids and cochlear implants, but singing and dancing require a whole new level of perseverance and dedication.
We all interpret the bounce, feeling, and beat of a song differently, so it was a bit chaotic at first. Trying to harmonize with each other was challenging, but we worked hard to find a way to blend our differences together.
Since I have difficulty hearing, learning a new song from scratch is tough, so I keep listening to it repeatedly to become more familiar with it. Even then, it can be a struggle to grasp the beat correctly and match the tone and volume of the other members. In those cases, our staff helps out.
After a year and a half of training, they're debuting with their single Light, a remake of first-generation K-pop boy group H.O.T's song of the same title. Their disabilities don't hinder their performances thanks to cutting-edge technology like light and vibrating metronomes. With these, mastering K-pop synchronized sophisticated dance moves is not a problem.
We first converted the sound into a beat vibration through the smartwatch, and also we synced it to the flashing light so that they can see the screen and feel the music with the flashing lights. In this way, they were able to feel the music more clearly, and they later tried to come up with some grooves and bounces too.
What sets Big Ocean apart isn't just their historical debut as the first K-pop group where all members have hearing impairments. They're also inspiring change.
Even with cochlear implant surgery, keeping up with the rhythm and hitting the right pitch is challenging. I think Big Ocean's incredible efforts will prove that disabilities don't confine the realm of arts, especially singing.
That's exactly what Big Ocean hopes to do. Show that music is for everyone and passion knows no limits.
저희 빅오션 그룹 앞으로 활동을 통해서 많은 사실 이제 청각 장애뿐만 아니라 다른 장애를 가지고 있는 많은 분들이 계시잖아요. 용기를 좀 더 내서 본인이 하고 싶은 일을 또 하셨으면 좋겠고. 네, 오셨습니다. 감사합니다.
송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In the US, the House of Representatives passed a bill on Saturday that could lead to social media platform TikTok being banned in the country. The legislation would ban the use of the social media platform unless its Chinese owner, ByteDance, sells its stake within a year. TikTok on Sunday reacted by expressing concern about the free speech rights of 170 million Americans. US lawmakers labeled the app a potential security risk over fears that the data of American users could be shared with the Chinese government. TikTok insists that it has never shared US data and it never will. A vote in the House in March gave ByteDance about 6 months to divest its US assets or face a ban, with that deadline extended due to the latest vote. President Joe Biden has previously said he would sign such a bill into law. Now to China, where flooding caused by days of heavy rain in the southern province of Guangdong has triggered an urgent emergency response from the government to protect 127 million people living in the region. Aerial footage on China's state media CCTV showed multiple villages and farmland underwater as the average rainfall in the province exceeded 120 millimeters in the 3 days leading up to Sunday. Almost 20,000 people in Qingyuan City have already been evacuated, while classes at some schools have been suspended. The provinces Xizang and Beijiang rivers hit their highest water levels in 50 years. As of Sunday, 24 rivers in the region exceeded flood warning water levels as China's National Disaster Prevention Authority issued a Level 3 emergency advisory. The World Anti-Doping Agency confirmed on Saturday that 23 Chinese swimmers tested positive for a banned substance before the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but it accepted China's explanation that the results were due to contamination. 23 members of China's 30-member swimming team tested positive for trimetazidine, found in heart medication, months before the COVID-delayed Tokyo Games in July 2021, where China won 6 medals for swimming, including 3 golds. According to the Chinese anti-doping agency CHINADA, the athletes were exposed to the banned drug through tainted food. Investigators said that many of China's top swimmers stayed at a hotel in 2020 and 2021, where trace amounts of the substance were found in the kitchen. The U.S. anti-doping agency has criticized WADA's findings. Kenyan Olympic champion Peres Jepchirchir broke the women's only world record as she claimed victory at the 44th London Marathon on Sunday. The 30-year-old 2020 Tokyo Olympics marathon gold medalist ran the 42.195 kilometers in 2 hours, 16 minutes and 16 seconds to break Mary Keitani's previous record of 2 hours, 17 minutes and 1 second. In the men's marathon, her Kenyan compatriot, 27-year-old Alexander Mutiso Munyao, was the winner, crossing the finish line in 2 hours, 4 minutes and 1 second. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Starting off the new week on a cloudy note. Cloudy skies are again covering much of the country with some spotty rain expected. East of Gyeongsangdo and Jeollado provinces, as well as Jeju Island, will see on and off showers through late this afternoon. So keep a small umbrella handy in case of rain. Despite gray skies, the central regions should see highs going up much higher than yesterday, while the East Coast will continue to see breezy highs this afternoon, hovering in the mid-teens. For a closer look, Seoul gets up to 25 degrees Celsius, while Gwangju tops out at 21 degrees this afternoon with some spotty rain. Normal to good air quality is expected all day nationwide. Then another band of rain is in the forecast for tomorrow, starting from Jeju and spreading to the rest of the southern regions and east of Gangwon-do. Wednesday could be a rainy one for many places. The sun makes a return on Thursday and should stay with us through the weekend. With that in mind, here is the look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for you at this hour. We'll bring you more updates at the same time tomorrow.